And we're going to be talking about Cult of the Deep. If you have any questions for Sam, be sure to put it down in the comments and it will show up on our end and we'll be able to answer it live. But in the meantime, Sam, tell us about yourself and about your game.
Well, I'm Sam Stockton, I guess. I'm the co-founder of BA Games. My older brother is the other half of it. So there's two of us. And we decided, hey, we're brothers. I guess we could do this. Let's start a game company.
It's either like we're brothers, we can do this, or like we're brothers and like we cannot work together. I'm glad you guys can work together.
well, partially that because our dad growing up, like he's like, all right, we're gonna go build a shed. And we're like, I don't want to build a shed, but we end up working together a lot. But it's interesting that my brother Ed, and we're opposites in a lot of ways. Where he is more of like production, let's go get it done. Let's like go. I'm more like, but we gotta smooth the edges. We gotta make everything lined up nice and perfect. I measure like 3 times. So like we're a little different from each other, but also when it works together, it works together really well.
Yeah, no, that's a great balance to have for sure. Like someone who's like pushing you forward and someone's like who's always making sure that you're, measuring 3 times, like you said. Yeah. I've always wanted, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, it's just interesting because it always also leads to conflict. But conflict is not inherently bad. The question is, what do you do with that conflict? But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, right? Like a lot of people who work have different working styles. Right? How do you manage the 2 different working styles that you have together, especially with even a sibling?
Lots of patience and knowing that the biggest one is that you trust the other person, that they have a common goal with you. And then in this case, we want BA Games to do the very best it can. We trust each other to think that and to push towards that goal. So in the end, it's all about the BA Games and making it better. And why we're doing this is because we would love to start a business this way, and because we love each other in the end. So even when things can get difficult, which it will, no matter what you do, even when you're by yourself doing a game, you will run into situations with either a manufacturer or a marketing person or whoever. There's going to be this conflict. Find that common ground and then take a deep breath. Sometimes take a day off, come back, and then work your way through it.
God, no, that's great advice for people, building a team to get to their launch, right? Finding the common ground, and also, at the end of the day, it's about that trust too. That trust that you're building to have, to rely on someone to get some task done, to rely on each other to work towards, the common good in a way for your project. Yeah. So I've always been wondering, right? Why is your publishing company called BA Games?
It's actually a kind of an embarrassing story on my part, but
love it.
So back in the 90s when MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice were like the thing,
yes,
my aunt had like an old karaoke tape deck thing where you guys should record your karaoke. I may or may not have recorded a rap about my brothers and I.
Where can we find this?
Nowhere. It's been destroyed. I like to think that it was quite good. In all actuality, it was not. But there's along the lines of it, do brothers awesome, best in the world. Oh yeah, do like it was really awful. But the BA is for brothers awesome, and so for years my brothers used to make fun of me for it. But as we've gotten older, they're like, yeah, we're brothers awesome. Let's do this. And so that's kind of what BA actually stands for, is brothers awesome. Because there's actually 5 brothers.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. That's amazing that you've used something from your childhood and you brought it into, this new endeavor that you're working on.
So, but no one would ever guess it. They're like, oh, BA with the bandana with the goat. Yeah, that's totally. Oh, wrong side. Here we go. Yeah, so everyone's like, yeah, I know what that stands for. It's like, nope.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I asked because I assumed something else too.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it works with our image, so we're okay with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Now that we have that story about the
The
name out of
truth.
the way, the
You
truth.
must delete this live now. Like it's no longer available.
So now my next question goes to like, how did you get into game design? Like, what started you both off on this journey?
So because we were brothers, and we moved a lot when we were young. No, not any fault of anybody. Just we moved a lot from place to place, and so a lot of times we ended up relying on each other for entertainment.
Mhm.
Because we didn't know anybody or if everything was happening or whatever. So we ended up playing games, and so we played like Warhammer. We played Battle Masters when that came out. Hero Quest. Woo!
Yeah.
He always made me the dwarf. I'm not sure why, but anyways. So in those different games, we played a lot of games with each other, and so naturally, what happens when someone starts playing a lot of games is they will start to create their own. It's like a natural thing that will occur. So for us, we made like World War Toy, which is a terrible, terrible game, where you could take any toy and put stats to it based on size and different stuff, and you could play like Warhammer but on your floor.
That's
Awful
pretty
game.
cool.
Cool idea. Awful game. Been done 1,000 times, but it's fun.
Yeah.
We've made like RPG set, like we've made like RPG worlds. We've like just here and there actually made stuff, and then about I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, I actually started being like, you know what? I actually kind of want to actually publish, like just make a game and publish it, at least even on a small scale. So I tried making a few games, and they were all awful. I still have them. They're cool ideas, but the execution is very, very poor. So I kept working at it, and then I made Cult of the Deep because we was playing at that time. I was playing a lot of social games with friends
Uh-huh.
pre-pandemic. Was it 3 years pre-pandemic? Is that
What year is
now?
it?
It's like 3 years before pre-pandemic. You're like, so we made this game. I made this game, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool because, like, okay, we get rid of player elimination because you become a ghost or a wraith. And instead of playing normally, you actually like haunt people's dice, which is cool because you get to take that after you to kill you, but also you are still part of the game. But so it had a lot of benefits to that. Like, okay, well, I also want more control, like some of the more board gaming elements where like, okay, if I roll dice, but what if I could put them in different places to get different benefits or negative, depending on what I wanted to do. And so that's when we create like the rituals in the center of the board. So everyone's participating in these rituals. And yeah, I can put dice on there to get benefits, but if I do it too much, then I just gave it to the other guy or the other person. And then, oh no, they got it. So, but I was like, oh, but then maybe I do want to do that because I'm like, yeah, I'm totally your friend, but not really.
Yeah.
And so just kind of involved, and then actually showed it to some people, and they're like, this is actually really fun. I'm like, you're just saying that. But then I took it to Gen Con, and I had a bunch of other people from the game industry that are friends of mine, and we just like played one night, and lots of other people, and they're like, this is really fun, actually. Like, can I do the art for it? And I'm like, well, this is what I had in mind. So that's where my friends Chuck Walton came in. He helped me do some of the initial concepting for the artwork and stuff. So
that's awesome. So it kind of like progressed from that playfulness, that game play aspect that you guys had when you were younger, and then you start creating. Someone actually asked in the chats here, they want to know more about the RPGs you've created. Talk to us more about that.
So we created one RPG. We've always been like really big into fantasy worlds, obviously, because when you're RPGs and stuff, a lot of the fantasy worlds. So like one of them we did was like, is it anthropomorphic? Is that the word for it, for animals that are like humans?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Woo! Like, big word of the day. All right, we're good. So anthropomorphic, and so like we had created this whole world around like the story of the scorpion and the frog. Well, they're both gods, and that's what happened. And so then like the frog people are always at war with the scorpion people, and like this whole different thing. So we created like kind of one of the like war like that. It was kind of fun, but at the same time we were young, we were teenagers, so like it could be better. But we did make one more recently that I'm actually more proud of. That's was originally going to be a tabletop war game, but instead of miniatures, it's with cards, and you can actually and you basically there's points to put your finger to pivot the unit, and so everything is just on these cards with this artwork, and you can actually pivot units and do everything. And so we actually had a really cool world there. We did like history and lore. We even got so into it that in like one of the races, they live out in the desert and like the steppes of this world.
Yeah.
And so we're like, yeah, but like they do all this magic and stuff, like, and they're very active physically. They need so many calories per day. Well, how calorie intensive a diet do you need? And so then we started doing research, like what's the most calorie intensive foods?
Really?
Yeah, we did actually. And come to find out, dairy products are amazingly calorie intense.
So like a stick of butter.
And nuts. So nuts are actually a very good source of like fats and like calories. And so we're like, well, where do nuts grow? We're like, happen to find out, Middle East. So we're like, deserts, the steppes, like, yeah, we can make this work. So we made a whole, and all of their herd animals, they get the dairy from that. So, because like they're going across the steppes like nomadically, we're like, okay, so we have dairy here, we have the nuts, so they have strongholds where they keep like large farm areas, oases kind of areas, but like huge walls and cities, and then the rest of the time they're nomadic across the plains. So we're like, yeah, so we really got into it. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. A lot of people are even like replying about this right now. It seems like there's another full campaign that you can even do just with this other one that you've been working on.
I would love to do something with this world. It's been in development. Like we even have like the problem is you can probably tell like some of our inspirations, because like then we have this another group like, okay, well, what if we had just humans? Like how would humans react? Like, okay, well, they're more technological. So we said, well, what if we did like Renaissance Italy? Right. So like there's like the budding of like ideas of like different classes and like some ideas of like senates and ideas of like an elected officials.
So politics starts to
kind of at the same time, but if you're throwing in all these magic users and stuff, how do magic users play into the equation? Are they like a different class to themselves? Like how are they controlled, or are they considered different, or are they integrated with society? And so what would an army look like from Italy? Because in that time, they're known for lots of mercenaries during that time period. Yeah. And so, like, what would that look like with magic users? So then, do they have a bunch of magic using mercenaries who develop different unique technologies based on their different groups, or like what? So
this is already like a fascinating world to kind of dive into. I'm sure a lot of people after this live are going to just ask you a ton of questions about this other world that you're creating.
Yeah, well, we have some concept art. I can even show that if you want. But.
Well, for just to make sure that we're talking about Cult of the Deep, because this one is launching really soon. Like, tell us more about Cult of the Deep and the world you're creating here. Like, what have you like put into the world?
Oh, so Cult of the Deep, in terms of history, I'm a whole history nerd, if you can't tell. So we decided like we wanted to like based on our world, so on Earth, but it's an alternate history.
Love it.
And what if magic existed? That's the question. Okay, awesome. But we wanted to know if magic existed, how does that change things? And where does magic come from? Well, it comes from different sources, different things. And so we're like, well, if that's the case, what are some major events that happened, especially in the fantasy, like medieval era? And one of those things is like, okay, well, the Europeans invaded the Americas. Well, if magic was a thing, and if you look at if you study the history of the Mayans and the Aztecs and the other cultures in the Americas, they could be argued that would have more of a spiritual aspect or a strong magic connection. And so we actually, in our world, we did that. So the Mayan Empire is this huge empire that's kind of conquered much of the Western Hemisphere. And they're actually the ones going to Europe and like visiting and saying, hey, we have ambassadors and you stay out of the Western Hemisphere or we'll kick your butt. And then they do that. And so actually that's why the astrologer card in Cult of the Deep, if you look at her, she's actually based on Mayan artwork and stone effigies and stuff that we found of like hair and different things. So we actually based her on old Mayan looks to kind of create her. And so that's why you have these Greek Parthenon columns, but then you have this Mayan woman in the center of it.
Wow. Actually, okay, let's take a step back here. Tell us more what Cult of the Deep is about. Like, what's
Oh,
your
sorry.
one sentence blurb, or like, what's your one paragraph like description of it? Because we just like went right in.
Sorry, we went too far to the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's like fascinating, but like, let's one step back. Let's do that.
So, all right, so Cult of the Deep is you are part of a cult. You are a cultist trying to establish like your faction's rise to power. And when you're doing that, you're fighting over rituals and control of monsters while you're trying to have your faction win. And basically, it comes down to you have the High Priest faction and the Faithful who are trying to, High Priest wins. You have the Kabbalists who want to take over and kill the High Priest and take power for themselves. And then you have the Heretic who just wants to burn the whole place to the ground. Just wants to get rid of everybody. And either be the last one standing or his other win condition is everyone's dead, including themselves.
Oh, okay. So the other win condition is like just total annihilation.
Yep. Scorched Earth, you win.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about like how you came up with the game. Like, what kind of mechanics are you including? Like, what kind of gameplay are you including? Like, how did it all just kind of come together?
So it was a social game, and then dice are my vice. Click clacks, shiny meth rocks. I love dice, and we wanted that in the game. We've played a lot of other games like Bang Bang Dice, King of Tokyo, like Coup, Resistance, Avalon, like all these different social games, Werewolf. And like, well, we wanted something that was a little more, you have a little more control sometimes, because that's my biggest complaint sometimes about just dice games is, yeah, they're random, but why do they have to be so random that you can't really try and shoot for anything for the most part? Yeah. This is why I love games like Kingsburg, like dice placement games. I love like Taverns of Tiefenthal. I love dice placement and trying to figure out, and I'm rolling for this, I want this, and you try to stuff. So the base mechanic of the game is you're going to roll dice, and then there's these rituals in the center that can give you different powers or abilities. And so you can actually try and power up, but be careful, because if you do it too much, say, oh, this one gives me all this life, so I'll do that. But if you don't finish it and someone else does, then they get the ability of like, hey, I get to roll 2 more dice every turn now. So you just gave someone 2 more dice per turn, which is like super powerful. So you're like, oh no, what have I done? But I want this. So you're trying to roll your dice, figure out what you want, trying to figure at the same time, what role are you? And so that's where the roles come in. Is like, okay, well, if we're allies, and I'm okay with it, but are we allies? Maybe I've been saying we're allies, but deep down, I'm a total traitor. So you do this now. Yeah, go attack the High Priest. Yeah. They go, they get charge in, they get shot, they get stabbed a bunch, and they're like, oh, help me. I'm like, oh, sweet. Stab you, take your stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
So.
No, and you mentioned that there's a lot of like kind of the historical like narrative part that comes into it too. How did you decide on this particular theme and kind of layer this into the social kind of gameplay that you wanted to have?
It came from reading books.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was reading some different authors. Like I was reading Dan Wells at the time, as well as some other authors. And one of the books was about monster hunting, and like if monsters are real, let's go out and hunt monsters, and like how would that look like, whatever. But in one of the narratives, they have all these cultists, and they actually go through like just a brief synopsis of like a brief thing of like some of the cult politics that can happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this would be awesome in a game. That'd be really awesome in a game. And so like, we'll just totally stab each other. That'd be great. And so that's when we created all these this game, and it was very unbalanced at first, but it was a whole lot of fun. So that's when we developed more and more.
Got it. Okay. No, that's really cool. So you were like reading lots of things. You were like imagining all these worlds, and then you were already creating this game. And so you just kind of put them all together.
Mm-hmm. So and my brothers and I, we're all a bunch of nerds when it comes to history. So I may or may not have been listening to Sabotage, if you don't know who that is.
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Sabotage is a power metal band that sings only about like military history and conflicts. That's so all niche. Their songs are educational, but man, those are rocking songs. Oh, they're so metal. But like they'll do like the like one of the songs like Last Stand, right? It was in 1527. The Swiss Guard hold off 100. I think it's 180 some odd men hold off like 1,000 men so the Pope can escape.
Yeah.
And there's an actual event, and there's a whole song about it, and it is so good.
Wow, that is like a super niche thing to sing about, but clearly there's an audience for it.
I'll have to have you listen to the songs. Like the Winged Hussars is also it's also there's so many good songs, but we love history, and it's always been something good. But I've always liked like alternate versions of history. Like you do this, what happens if you add magic? Which is usually my go-to. Add magic. What happens? But also like something like the darker stuff, like add like Vampires the Masquerade is kind of that way, right? Where you add vampires and werewolves to a real world setting, like what would that look like? What would happen? And so that's kind of the same concept. So I like taking stuff that we know and then kind of like mixing it up with some fantasy elements, and it just changes everything. Like, well, what happened here? What would happen? And then you can go off on a tangent for miles. It's just so good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like alternate histories too. One of the books I just read this past year actually was like what would happen if America, United States, had a royal family instead of the type of political system we had now. And it's like a super kind of trashy young adult novel that I read in my like free time. But it was like, that's kind of interesting to think about, like all the things that happened if you like look at it from a different political like view. Like there's a whole new like future that we're looking about, but I digress.
Well, no, it's also because you can take this event and then like it kind of goes over here and then over here, and you're like, well, what if this happens? Like, didn't even take like, oh, what if this event happened? Like, if you had, say, the Revolutionary War was more based on power of royalty. I mean, there's a lot of other, besides all the political and potential, side effects that would go on. You go on just a nice fantasy jaunt and say, well, there's the royal power. Like maybe what happens, there's a child of the royalty that was smuggled to the Americas, and then they grew up, and they wanted to fight their father. And they're like, hey, by the way, you're actually a prince. And they're like, what? And then they're like, well, screw the king, like whatever. And then they rise up and they get into this whole thing. Like it would change Boston Tea Party, totally different situation. Right?
Totally different. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, again, fan of alternate history. So this is really, really cool. So out of all of this, there's a lot to be really excited about and a lot to be really proud of. What are you most excited about when you talk about Cult of the Deep? What are you most like proud of when you tell other people about this game?
Well, the first thing I'm like, check out our art. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I always do. Because we spent this is where all of that time playing RPGs and time doing this alternate history stuff actually started to pay off. Was a lot of the details we went into when I was doing the art direction for the artwork.
Got it.
So you can look, we even have like certain characters. We try okay, this time period, you cannot break these rules of clothing for the most part. Like we might be able to fudge 20, 30 years, but like, this is the kind of armor that would have been worn. This is what they developed. This is what they look like. This is practical. I'm huge that way. I'm a huge fan of like practical fantasy.
Yeah.
Magic's awesome, but like, how does it function? How does it improve things? Like, you can't just have a 20-foot sword. Like, no, that's not practical.
You can't wield it.
It's like, well, if magic make it lighter, like you're onto something, but it's still 20 feet. What if we shortened it to 8 feet? That's more doable.
Okay, that's awesome. So check out the artwork, right? First things first, go see the artwork.
Right. And you'll see it. As soon as you open our website, it'll be a giant kraken. With the cultists. And if you go to the next page, you'll see like the ancient shadow going to murder the poor dude. You'll see stuff like this astral rift. Like, we're super proud of the art. It does a lot for the game.
Nice. And for other people who are like gonna go to Kickstarter too with their first game for Kickstarter, right? What are kind of some of the challenges and obstacles that you've kind of faced along the way? Anything that trip you up?
Anything and everything. The rule is if it will go wrong or potentially go wrong, it will go wrong at some point. This weekend was a good example. Trying to set up a pixel on a website should be pretty simple. Apparently, I have a special pixel that just randomly does things sometimes. We don't understand. We're able to get that fixed. So yay, thank you.
Yay! Yeah. Any
For those who don't know, she was super helpful and saved me because I'm like, I don't know what's happening. It's not working.
Yeah, we spent a little bit working through this pixel problem, but right now Call to the Deep should be able to be tracking their ads now on the website.
It's tracking everything now, so we're good.
Perfect.
So
button clicks,
come to our website.
Yeah.
We will follow you. I mean, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So, what kind of like tips and pointers would you have for people who are kind of coming to your page or game, kind of learning more about Culture of the Deep for the first time? Like, what should they be like looking at beyond the artwork and stuff?
Looking at the artwork, you can look what they should be looking at.
What are they going to be learning about your game, right? Where are they going to be learning it? Because lots of people are going to see this video and they're going to be like, "Sounds a funny guy. I want to go see what this game is about, right? I want to go check out more about Call of Duty." Now what? Now, how do they get more involved?
If you want to get more involved, our best place is probably our Facebook group, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we have weekly game nights where we just play games. So every Thursday night is game night on Tabletop Simulator. We get everyone together, we pack them all into the Discord, and we're like, all right, who's playing what? And so we're like, well, I'm doing taverns. You're like, all right, sweet. Who wants to play taverns? Like, we do. And like, all right, sweet. You four, go play taverns. All right, who wants to? Like, well, I want to do Quacks of Quedlinburg. Like, sweet. All right, who's teaching that? You are? All right, go to this room. Who's doing Quacks? And the people will go over to Quacks and be like, all right, who's playing Power Rangers? We're like, yeah, I'm a Power Ranger. Let's go. And so then we go to that one and play Power Rangers. So it sounds weird as an adult saying, let's go play Power Rangers, but
hey, we need fun and entertainment too as adults, right? So,
well, somebody might say, oh, let's go play Axis and Allies. Let's go play, Taverns of Tiefenthal. It's like, okay, it kind of got like, it's kind of like a board game or whatever, but like, let's go play Power Rangers. You're like, is that a board game? Or are you guys literally going to go like it's Morphin Time and like on the disc? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I am all
we're
for
big
that.
LARPers,
I'm Red Power Ranger all the way. I'm all for that.
Red.
So anyway, yeah, let's kind of come back to like you as a game designer too. I totally forgot to ask this question. How do you kind of get ideas for the games that you make and all this like inspirations? That like what kind of media inspires you? You talked about books, right? You talked about all your reading. You talked about historical fiction. Like, how does this like spur a thought for a game? Like, what is your process kind of like?
Mostly it's just I like reading. Reading is one of the big things I do. And I think about like what if moments. And the key is to ask what if or how would this be a game? And you can even do like simple stuff. Like I just had a game idea last night about the Tooth Fairy.
Nice. Okay, now you're gonna tell us a little bit more about this.
Think about it.
Yeah.
What does the Tooth Fairy do?
The Tooth Fairy comes and takes someone's tooth and leaves some money for the tooth, and then disappears with the tooth.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, you're going to get a tooth, right?
Yes.
But Tooth Fairy gets more than one tooth, obviously.
Yep.
So you got to get multiple teeth. So you got to collect resources, right? But then you got to drop money. Yeah. Now, why would they drop money? The answer in my head is so that they maintain the belief that Tooth Fairy exists. Because when there's a belief that they exist, more people will be able to drop their teeth, but like leave teeth for them to pick up. So you're accumulating more and more resources. You're basically growing the belief in the world. And that happens, you can get more and more teeth. But what do you do with the teeth? Well, in my head, they're building whole cities full of teeth, like castles and taverns for the other groups of fairies. So you can recruit more fairies to your side, so they can go get more teeth and leave more money, which then more money leaves more people, which allows you more teeth to build more city, which means you can recruit more fairies. So the whole idea is it's like a tableau builder with teeth, money, and belief.
That's awesome. That's a full game right there too.
The whole thought. We'll see. Yeah.
Another one.
Oh yeah, I'm publishing that next month on Kickstarter, so stay tuned.
Yeah. Let's talk about this Kickstarter is coming up, right?
But real fast, I love Power Rangers too, by the way.
Oh, yep. I didn't even see this one. Yeah, this one. Someone just mentioned that I love Power Rangers. So
the co-op game, the miniatures co-op game is fantastic if you love co-op games.
Okay.
It is an intense co-op, and you will get your butt kicked more often than not, and I love it.
Okay, we're gonna have to drop a link to that too after this live so that people can go and check out the co-op game.
Oh, Heroes of the Grid, so good. It's been out for a long time, but just the base game, it's just a whole lot of fun.
Awesome. Okay, well, anyway, back to the Kickstarter for Cult of the Deep.
Sorry.
It's coming up soon. When is it? Where can we find out more about it? Like, what's kind of the status of it?
So we are hitting Kickstarter February 2nd. So in a little over 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In 3 weeks, we are currently have a Notify Me page up on Kickstarter that you can sign up. We'd love you to click the Notify Me button. That way you get an email when it goes live. Love you to do that. We also probably have a full Kickstarter page, at least a pre-page, up hopefully in about a week. That'll have like our different tiers and different things. So if you hit Notify Me and stuff, we'll keep you up to date on everything. Also, if you want to keep in tabs with us, if you check out our website, which is at bagamesco.com, you can subscribe to our newsletter. We'd love to have you there. We will be updating that and give you different updates on whatever the tier is going to be. Plus, we may have a surprise for you if you're on our newsletter and you back the game in the first 72 hours. We may or may not have an extra set of promotional dice happening.
May or may not. You know, may or may not.
We also have we're gonna have a social stretch goal app before launch.
Okay.
Where if we can get enough people on the Notify Me page and like the Board Game Geek page and all different pages, we're gonna go ahead and do alternate versions of the characters in the game, so that when you break open the box, you'll have even more options and replayability in the game. Because we realized if we get enough people to get momentum for the marketing, which is good for us, that's good for the game. Yeah. But also to reward everyone for doing that, we can pretty easily, using the same artwork, we'd create another card that has different abilities that are related to each other. And so you would have, for just a little more effort and game time, which we've already kind of done in some ways, we did a lot more game testing to be having, but at this point in time, it wouldn't be too hard to do that. And so to reward everybody, we'd be happy to spend some time doing that if we can get enough momentum.
Awesome. Okay, so basically it's check out the page, sign up for the newsletter, since you maybe or maybe not get promotional dice too. Yeah. If you're on the list and you back early, which is maybe not, AK yes, please do it. And there's going to be social stretch goals coming out, being released really soon, and the best place to kind of get that community feel for everyone that's in Cult of the Deep is your Facebook group, right?
Yep. Cult of the Deep.
Perfect. And before we kind of leave today, is there anything else that you want to tell people about Cult of the Deep, things that are coming up, anything that you want to share before you head out?
Well, I think everyone, it's been so nice. I mean, someone said this looks really cool. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, we love you guys. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's not a very long game. It's like a 45 to 60-minute game in person. Tabletop Simulator takes a little longer, just because moving things around and the chat and stuff. But still really fun. So if you want to check it out, you can go to our website. You can download the rulebook for free. We have the full rulebook online. It's not final yet. Like, you'll look at it. It's pretty close to final in like all layouts and stuff. But we're going to have to improve some of the functionality of it already. We know that. Also, we would love to get you guys' feedback. So if anyone has any feedback they want to give on the rulebook, I'm more than happy. We're going to start a change log on our website, on the blog, showing all the different things we're going to change in the rulebook, because we're not perfect and it could always do better. So we're looking to that. You can also, we have a link for the Steam Workshop. So if you have Tabletop Simulator and you want to check out the game, we have the full game on the simulator that you can download.
Awesome.
So have at it, have fun with it, play with your friends, play with whoever, or even just look at it. That's fine. We have a really cool altar table to play the game on in there. It's got tentacles and everything.
Nice. Okay. No, this is really awesome. Well, Sam will be dropping some of these links below the video once we
Mhm.
are done with the live so that everyone will be able to access that.
Because I
Yeah.
can't multitask. I can't talk and type at the same time. It just is not possible. Oh, I am doing like this, like what? What'd you say? I don't even know it. It's like I just can't. I can't do it. My wife makes fun of me all the time.
Well, yeah, everybody, Cult of the Deep coming February 2nd. So be sure to go and get involved in all these separate channels that we just talked about here. Sam is online all the time, helping you all and getting to know everyone and talking about Cult of the Deep. So yeah, be sure to check it out.
Join the cult. It's fun.
Join the cult. All right. Thanks very much for being here, Sam.
Thank you.